Another month down, another crop of mobile games to go through and find the most interesting. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the 10 best new iOS and Android games of June 2018. Just a quick disclaimer, we are going to discuss the best paid games today. We also do a free list, which will be out very soon, and we highly recommend you check that out. Number 10 is Gleam of Fire, an action platformer released on iOS, which is a very pretty, somewhat simple looking game, but is anything but. It's a real hardcore action platformer with various different moves. You have a bow and arrow, you have a sword, you have the capacity to dash in games like Celeste or any of the various games that inspired that, and in all actuality, it comes off fairly new, despite being the sum of many parts that I've seen before. There's a level of polish to this game that I think really shouldn't be ignored. It knows exactly what it wants to be, and it's just in between a couple of things that I think we're more familiar with, just enough to the point where it seems like a new experience. Gleam of Fire is out on iOS, where it costs $3.99. No word yet on Android, but let's hope. Number 9 is Istanbul Digital Edition, which is, as you might be able to guess, the digital edition of the board game Istanbul. By the way, not a no-name board game at all. Istanbul is a receiver of numerous awards, and the digital edition is a one-to-one representation of that game. For the unfamiliar, you essentially lead a group of a merchant and their assistants in a bazaar, that is a market. That's essentially something you have to do, planning ahead, moving assistants into various different locations, handling details while you work on the overarching deal, so to speak. You can play by yourself against AIs, or you can play cross-platform online multiplayer, or even pass and play, which is great because in my opinion, mobile board games without that feature are really missing out. Istanbul Digital Edition is out on both iOS and Android, and it costs $6.99. Number 8 is Evoland 2, the genre-bending, art-style-bending tribute to many, many different video games through the ages. It's a game that gives you a lot of different types of play, with art styles that range from Game Boy to 8-bit to 16-bit and 3D. It's interestingly enough a time-traveling adventure that uses the various art styles and play styles to notate different time periods and societal dynamics. It's the sequel to a game that did the same thing but on a smaller scale. And although Evoland 2 isn't necessarily 100% new, it's now on mobile platforms for the first time. It's a great game, it's certainly interesting, and does a large amount with the idea of tribute that ends up being a new experience. Evoland 2 is now out on iOS and Android for $5.99. Number 7 is Golf Club Wasteland, a game in which the rich move to Tesla City on Mars. I wonder what that's a reference to. Yes, you might be able to guess this is a satirical game. There was a great ecological catastrophe on Earth, leaving everything in ruins, and the rich are able to travel back to Earth to play golf in the wasteland. Honestly, brilliant. Just the premise alone. But it's also a lush, atmospheric, visual narrative that isn't just some random, repetitive mechanic. Make no mistake, this is a narrative game, and it's got a bunch of interesting ideas in satire, as well as even just modeling what music will be in 2020. And to say that it's insightful is just a massive understatement. This is a good game, and it's so different. And frankly, I love listening to Mars Nostalgia Radio. Golf Club Wasteland is now out on iOS. It costs $2.99, and there is no word on Android yet. I'm hoping though, because I think it's one that a lot of people would like. Number 6 is Card Quest, which is a card combat game filled with dungeon crawling and roguelike but strategic gameplay elements. Now, when I say this is a card game, it is a card game, not a Clash Royale type card game. Like, you play this like a card game on the screen, and it's fun and addicting for that matter. There are a number of classes, and obviously you can customize your deck. It is very explicitly a dungeon crawling card game. And if you're looking for that, and without much of the frills or story elements that some games like that include, this is exactly what you're looking for, and it will scratch that itch. I enjoy it quite a bit. Card Quest is out on iOS, and it costs $4.99. Number 5 is 6 Ages Ride Like the Wind, which is very much a simulation game set in a fantasy world that is very hard to just flat out categorize. You have to make various choices about the narrative, and make no mistake, this is actually a narrative game, which is different because there are times when it feels more simulation while you're getting literal prose. It's kind of the cross-section of a lot of different stuff, and it doesn't seem like something that would happen in the mobile space to me, but it works, and it's really cool that something like this was even made. 6 Ages Ride Like the Wind is out on iOS for $9.99. Number 4 is Suzy Cube, a game that I would call a 3D platformer in the vein of Super Mario 3D Land or Super Mario 3D World. It's very much along those lines, might I say. Now, I wouldn't call it a ripoff because it does a lot of stuff that I would also maybe classify as Super Mario Galaxy-like, or even Super Mario Odyssey-like, with a totally different aesthetic, obviously. It's very cutesy, but not overly so. It's something that an adult could probably say, I like this game, and no one would laugh. Still, it's obviously not going for the same look as Mario, but it's hard to not notice that it wears that influence on its sleeve in other ways. It takes this sort of coarse mentality from 3D Land and World and marries it with the collectathon mentality of other Mario games or the Rare platformers as well, and it really comes out good. Like, it really comes together as a phenomenal 3D platform, and if more of them were like this on this level, and I am saying on console as well as mobile, I think we'd be in good shape as far as platforming goes. Number 3 is Muse Dash, which is somewhere between an endless runner parkour style game and a rhythm game, and it marries the two genres just incredibly well. It also gets points for having personality in its aesthetic, a great color scheme, if not kind of typical music of the kind of game it looks like. That's not necessarily bad though, because the art design is so good and the music is still enjoyable and it's just oozing with personality in basically every corner. It's refreshing. It's just an enjoyable game. And Muse Dash is out on iOS and Android for $2.99. Number 2 is Dungeon Maker Dark Lord, which is a very different take on a sort of card-based dungeon making board game. I mean, this successfully mixes quite a few genres of game. It's not that different from Dungeon Keeper if you're sticking to the actual idea of the game. You play as the bad guys, you set up the dungeon, etc., etc. You've heard that before, but the simplicity and yet depth of this game, where you lay down cards to put together a dungeon, just really, really works. You have different cards based on battles, types of rooms, and things like that, and it never really feels unfair or too hard, but it never feels easy either. It's just a different game, and in every way, having a different take on such a well-treaded genre is just awesome to see. Dungeon Maker Dark Lord is out on iOS and Android for $2.99. And finally, number 1 is Bloons TD6, which is a goofy name, and it's not even the first of its kind. There's obviously 5 games prior to this. It's a tower defense game with a bunch of monkeys that you do a bunch of upgrades to, and I'm gonna be honest, me describing it is just gonna make it sound like a typical tower defense game. It isn't. It's a really good tower defense game. It's probably one of the best tower defense games. And it also has a very unique look, because most tower defense games are going for some other look, whereas this takes just an outright fun, casual approach to its visuals, and yet is not that. There's elements of bullet hell, some more extreme scenarios, and otherwise just a large amount of fun. Bloons TD6 is out on iOS and Android for $4.99. What was your favorite iOS and Android game this month? Leave us a comment, let us know, and if you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.